Hello, this is the Office of Professional Standards and Labor Relations. Our team is responsible for maintaining a professional workplace for all Brevard Public Schools employees to provide a professional environment that is grounded by integrity and ethical standards. You'll hear me say this information a lot throughout this presentation. You are all public entity employees now, so therefore you are held to a higher ethical standard, and we'll reference that several times within the policies that professional standards and labor relations governs. We investigate allegations of misconduct, violation of board policy, Florida statute, and professional conduct of the educational profession if you are a current certificated employee. We guide staff through guidelines through our contracts and our policy language, and we help resolve grievances. If you work under one of the two collective bargaining agreements and you feel in some way that collective bargaining agreement has been violated throughout your work performance, we will work with your union representative, your principal, or your supervisor, along with professional standards and labor relations to help resolve that grievance. We handle ethics investigations, and we provide resources for our employees around your evaluations each year. We also work with our two bargaining units in order to negotiate those two contracts each year. Your orientation materials, most of your orientation materials will be found on Frontline. All employees are required to review orientation materials within 30 days of school or new hire. You must sign off on these orientation materials within the Frontline system. The Frontline system also has a valuable piece of resource information. If you feel that you want to take a course, such as maybe a refresher on Access or Excel, or a course has been designated to you by your principal or supervisor as far as continuing education, or even if maybe you want to eventually get onto the leadership team track, you would go onto the Frontline system to register for some of these classes that are offered and are available for free. Along with another valuable piece of resource information on the district website is our leadership team packet. The leadership team packet is always located under staff under the district website, and it comes out every Monday. The leadership team packet is all memos going to departments within the district in between our bi-monthly board meetings. These leadership team memos go to areas of locations such as food services, plant operations and maintenance, curriculum, chief of schools, human resources. So if you want to keep abreast of what's going on within the school district in between the bi-monthly board meetings, a good way to find out this information would be to visit the leadership team packet. Your evaluations, again, these are located on our Frontline system, and your evaluations are performed annually. I recommend that if you haven't pulled your job description, that you do so and review the information that is listed on the job description and become familiar with it. If there are any questions that you have regarding your job description and the performance of tasks listed, please make sure that you contact your principal or your supervisor because your job performance or your evaluation will be based on that job performance. Our Board Policy 3210, Standards of Ethical Conduct. As an employee of Brevard Public Schools, you are bound by a common code of ethics to the extent that there is no conflict with additional Florida laws, federal laws, or government regulations. This includes all board members, administrators, teachers, community coaches, any employee of the school district that is employed by BPS, regardless of the collective bargaining agreement, your status, role, or other dual roles as public servants and educators. We're all bound by the same standard of policy. Again, you are all held to a higher ethical standard when it comes to working for Brevard Public Schools. Some potential ethics violations that we investigate within professional standards and labor relations, these are not all inclusive. These are just some examples that we have come across to give you an idea of what could possibly be an ethics violation. Recording students on cell phones or embarrassing students in front of class, in front of others, verbal abuse. I like to use an example. Sometimes you see people on social media that use TikTok maybe to call a student up in front of class to maybe the student didn't do their homework that day, and they call the student up in front of class, make them do a silly dance, wear maybe a little hat or something like that. That could possibly or potentially embarrass a student as a source of small punishment for not doing their homework, that is an ethics violation. Not only is it recording a student on your cell phone, but it is also embarrassing a student in front of the class. Sending students home without contacting parents, meaning we are in local parentis while we have students on our school campuses. Therefore, if you are at a high school and you have students that drive to and from school, make sure that you have parental permission to release a student. Even if the student says that they're going to their dentist appointment at 11 o'clock and they're just going to drive to their appointment and they'll be back to school campus after the appointment is concluded, you still have to have that parental permission for them to leave school campus, even for student drivers. Other types of investigate or ethical conduct violations could be unsupervised classrooms, ECF reports, and we'll get into that information in just a little bit, performance issues, failing to follow our security protocols, bullying, harassment, or intimidation, certain arrests that fall under Florida statutes, time fraud, social media violations, failure to keep students safe, curriculum mistakes, aggressive behavior toward coworkers, failure to report, keeping medicine in your classroom, 3 strikes if you're a certificated employee under the Professional Practices Services, and reasonable suspicion, positive drug test or refusal to test, and we'll get into that with our drug-free workplace policy in a minute. Our anti-harassment policy is a policy for the board to maintain an educational and work environment that is free from all forms of unlawful harassment, including sexual harassment. Students and administrators, teachers and staff, and other school personnel share this responsibility to avoid and discourage and report any form of unlawful harassment. Harassment includes anything such as slurs, innuendos, or other verbal or physical conduct reflecting on an individual that are protected under the applicable federal, state, and local laws, which has the purpose or effect of creating an intimidating, hostile, or offensive educational or work environment. Our anti-fraud policy, 8700, the board is committed to protecting its financial resources, property, information, and other assets. The board will not tolerate the commission of fraud or concealment of fraud by any employee. The purpose of the policy is to establish certain principles or and expectations of district employees in order to prevent fraud, provide for the investigation of suspected fraud, and provide for consequences for engaging in any manner of fraud and to heighten awareness of potential fraud. Known or suspected fraud shall be reported immediately to the superintendent or his designee. Violations of this policy may result in termination or some lesser penalty, including but not limited to suspension without pay or reprimand. Failure to report fraud shall be grounds for discipline up to including termination and reporting to professional practice services with the Florida Department of Education as required by law. A false or malicious allegation of fraud is a violation of this procedure and shall be grounds for disciplinary action up to and including dismissal. The main number one fraud that we see in professional standards and labor relations is time fraud. So please make sure that if you are required to work certain hours that you are doing so and that you check in at the appropriate time and you leave at your scheduled time. Our drug-free workplace policy is Board Policy 3124. A few years back, Brevard Public Schools updated its drug-free workplace policy. And you'll see within our policy that we included this to be any and all products containing THC, including CBD oil, lotions, gummies, and any other forms of medically prescribed marijuana, which may exist now or in the future. Now you might be asking yourself, why did Brevard Public Schools change this policy? The state of Florida has decided to legally recognize medical marijuana and that it is okay to use medical marijuana for medicinal purposes. However, Brevard Public Schools changed our board policy because we have to abide by the federal statute. The federal statute still says that THC and medical marijuana or any form of marijuana is still a Schedule I drug and therefore illegal. States may alter their state laws as they see fit. However, under the federal government, marijuana again is considered a Schedule I drug and therefore illegal. Brevard Public Schools changed our policy to reflect the federal statute because we receive federal funds for dollars for education, such as Title I, Title II, Title IX. Therefore, we have to abide by the federal statute, or we could be in jeopardy of losing these federal dollars, which help support and govern a public education system. So, therefore, please make sure if you're using any medicinal items that you're using for arthritis, things of that nature, make sure that you contact your physician or you know exactly what is in the medical or medicinal items that you're using. They do not contain any THC or CBD oils. We have had employees in the past test positive when they went for a drug free workplace screening, and therefore it could be grounds for disciplinary action up to termination. Now, with under our drug free workplace policy, there are 3 ways that you can be drug tested under this policy. You can be drug tested as a new employee. You can be drug tested if you are injured during the course and scope of your employment. You have a workers' compensation claim. We will ask you to go for a post-accident drug screen. The third way is that if you are suspected by your supervisor or school administrator to be under the influence of any type of item while you were performing your job at work, we will ask you to go for a reasonable suspicion drug screen. Under our drug free workplace policy, you have the right to refuse to go for a post accident drug screen or a reasonable assistance or a reasonable assurance drug screen, being suspected of being under the influence. However, please note that if you refuse the second two, a workplace drug screen or a reasonable suspicion drug screen, we will consider this a positive drug screen and it could be grounds for termination or up to a disciplinary action. So again, you have the right to refuse those. Just know that there is a consequence if you refuse either one of those last two that could be leading to a disciplinary action up to termination. Also, within our drug-free workplace policy, we have a self-reporting component that if you feel that you have a substance abuse problem and you need help and you cannot go anyplace else to find help that you need for this substance abuse problem, you can report this to your school administrator or supervisor, and we will get you the help that you need under our employee assistance program. We will provide you the assistance to help your substance abuse problem and hopefully find you the cure because we want our employees well and healthy. Also, within the drug free workplace component and the self reporting component, if you feel that maybe you have partaken in an illegal substance or a substance that you did not know that would be affecting your job, such as alcohol or a type of an illicit drug, you can go to your supervisor or administrator and report to the administrator or supervisor that you maybe have partaken in this. You are now at work on a Monday morning and you feel that it might be affecting your job. These two self reporting components will help protect your job. However, if we ask you to go for a post accident drug screen or a reasonable assurance and you tell your supervisor or administrator 20 minutes before we're asking you to go for this type of screen, your self reporting component will not work at that time. It must be a true self reporting component. Our social media guidelines policy. I cannot stress this enough to employees. Please make sure that when you are on social media or on the internet that you always keep in mind one, again, higher ethical standard that you are held to. Two, nothing is truly private when it comes to the use of social media or internet. We ask that you limit your social media use or your internet use to non-district related business, such as limited to off-duty time. If you're on your break or your lunchtime, please feel free to use your own social media or the internet. We ask that you please do not use social media or internet while you are supposed to be doing your work tasks and duties. We ask that you maintain a work or personal distinction. Employees should maintain that clear distinction between your own personal social media and district related social media items. I use the example that maybe you are a chorus coach or a bowling coach or an athletic coach. And maybe your students over the weekend did a phenomenal performance or activity, and you want to share that information with the world because we should share the accolades and the greatnesses of our students. However, please make sure that if you're going to post something about what your students have done, that you post it on the district social media website under your school and not your own personal social media. Please make sure that you always maintain that distinction. There could be certain other federal guidelines that are violated, such as FERPA, if you post students that are not your own students under your personal social media, and we always want to make sure that we maintain that clear distinction. Also, if you're going to join a personal social media network or media accounts, please make sure that you know what kind of social media network you're joining. There are several out there that are maybe unknown, and if you join a social media network, if it's not on the approved or maybe not held to our higher ethical standard, again, this could be something that could lead to disciplinary action up to termination. So please make sure that you always are aware of what type of social media or network groups that you're joining when it comes to your own personal social media account as well. Again, always keep in mind nothing is truly private, and we ask that you maintain that level of professionalism when it comes to social media, not only when it comes to related to district social media, also within your own personal social media as well. I will not tell you that parents love and community members love to go through Brevard Public School employees' social media accounts. Rightfully so, they want to know who are around their students, and our community members want to know who is working for Brevard Public Schools. They love to troll through social media accounts to find information about Brevard Public School employees. So always maintain that level of professionalism. We have people that will argue with you on social media. It is very easy to argue with people. We have lost that face to face art of communication. So always make sure that when you are commenting on a blog or information that members might be posting on social media, if you're going to comment, make sure that you have factual related basis, that you can make a substantial argument to that person's comment. Make sure that you have actual factual basis because it is something that is part of your job, and you can back that argument with factual, substantial information. I'm not saying that you can't comment on blogs, but always please remember to make sure that you are held to that higher standard and you are maintaining that level of professionalism. Also, make sure that you are responsibly doing online identity monitoring. Maybe you might want to Google your name to see what comes up. We encourage employees to monitor online identity by performing search engines on a routine basis to make sure that your profiles are on the up and up when it comes to a professional profile and management system. Employees that violate our social media guidelines may be disciplined for inappropriate or unprofessional behavior. Our leaves policy is Board Policy 3430. And a few years back, we updated our technical leaves guidebook to help further explain how employees may be out of work at certain periods of time. So there are certain ways that you are allowed to be out of work. If you are an employee that earns sick time, and you are calling out sick for the day, I cannot stress to you enough, please make sure that you contact your supervisor or your administrator, whoever it is that you report to make sure that they know that you will be out out of work for that day. Please make sure that if you are out 5 sick days, that on the 6th day, if you were out, you return with a doctor's note. That is part of our sick leaves policy. Again, you were allowed 5 sick days. On the 6th day that you were out being sick, you must present a doctor's note to return. Another way to be out of work is to be out of work on Family Medical Leave Act or medical leave. And we ask that you fill out a leaves form with our leaves department, with your school secretary or your department secretary, requesting that you will be out of work and also obtaining your medical cert saying while you will be out of work and the beginning time that you will be out and the return time that you will return to your job. Family medical leave is a protection under a federal statute that protects your job while you are out of work. So if you have questions about Family Medical Leave Act or medical leave, please contact our leaves department and they will be more than happy to walk you through the process. We ask that you complete the leaves absence form 10 days before you are going to be out so that we know that you are going to be out of work and how to accommodate for your jobs or tasks during the time that you will be absent from work. We do understand that emergencies happen. Maybe you went to the doctor on a Wednesday and you find out that you're going to have surgery on that Friday. and it is an emergency type of situation. We ask that in emergency situations that you again work with your school secretary or your department secretary to make sure you get that leaves form turned in. So again, we know that you're going to be out of work on the starting date and when you potentially will return, because again, this is job protection for you. The last way to be out of work is AWOL, absent without approved leave. No one ever wants to be absent without approved leave. It means that you are not keeping contact with your supervisor or your school administrator. So again, please, if you're going to be out of work, make sure that you contact somebody to let them know. We also have a rule within professional standards and labor relations that if you are out 3 days or more, what we call a 3-day no call, no show, we are going to send local law enforcement to your home to check on you. We are afraid that something has happened to you and that you are not able to contact us, and that maybe you are injured or unable to come to work or you need medical assistance. We want our employees to be well and healthy. So therefore, if you do not show to work for 3 days or more without a no call or no show, we will send local law enforcement to your house for a well care check. So please, again, make sure you keep in contact with somebody that you report to when you are out of work. Student Supervision and Welfare, Board Policy 3213. Please report immediately to any administrator or supervisor any accident, safety hazard, potential harmful conditions, situations detected on campus. Please provide proper instruction in safety matters with assigned course guidelines. Notify administrators regarding any knowledge of threats of violence by students on school campus. Again, we follow the federal law. If you see something, say something. Please make sure that if you see something on campus that doesn't look quite right, that you contact the SRO or school administrator. Also, make sure that students are never left unattended. It is our right to make sure that we supervise students and maintain their safety at all times while on school campus. So therefore, if somebody asks you to watch a child until a parent arrives at that time, please know that you will be watching that student until that time. We should never leave students unattended on campus. Our board policy 8462 is what we call our student and abuse neglect policy. This is our mandatory child abuse reporting policy. All employees, including substitute teachers and volunteers, have an affirmative duty to immediately report known or suspected child abuse, neglect, or abandonment. Brevard Public Schools employees who fail to report may be subject to criminal prosecution and/or up to disciplinary action up to termination of employment. Please know that this is not only a board policy that is a mandatory reporting, it is a Florida statute. So please make sure that if you have suspected abuse or neglect of a student, that you report this to local law enforcement and to the Department of Children and Families. The standard is reasonable cause to suspect. You must be able to articulate some objectionable factual information based on suspicion. And how are you to report this information? You can notify your school administrator, and the school administrator will help you notify the Department of Children and Families. They will also help you contact the appropriate law enforcement personnel, which could be the SRO at your school. If you do not have an SRO at your school, it could be the local law enforcement agency that governs or surrounds your school. You can report the suspected abuse or neglect to the Department of Children and Families reporting hotline, or you can report the information to the reporting online form, the website that is located, and you can click here on this presentation. Once you have reported the suspected abuse or neglect, you have done your due diligence as a mandatory reporter. Please do not go any further conducting interviews, do not call the guardians, and do not initiate an investigation. I know that we want to make sure that our students are well and safe, and it is alarming when we have reason to report these matters. But again, we need to let Department of Children and Families and local law enforcement take care of these investigations as you have done your due diligence at that time. Employees that are in direct contact with students are required to complete a one-time course with the Florida Department of Education. Contact your secretary and they can tell you more information about this requirement. CPI training is paramount to positions within the district, And if you are required to be CPI trained, please again make sure you contact Student Services and they will get you signed up for CPI training. The other best piece of advice that I can give you when it comes to working with students is that unless you are CPI trained, meaning that you've been trained to restrain students that could become a harm to themselves or others, please, please, please do not put your hands or touch students. I know that it's very hard sometimes, especially with younger students. They want to be up underneath your feet and they want lots of attention. But the best piece of advice I can give you from professional standards of labor relations is not to touch students. If you accidentally come in contact with a student or you have a situation where you've had to touch a student in an insolvent manner, please make sure that you report this to your school administrator. Therefore, the school administrator knows that this incident happened and can take actions with parents or guardians to explain the situation and what happened and the reason for the insolvent report. Another piece of advice I can give you for professional standards and labor relations is that if there is a fight on school campus, you are not legally obligated to break up a student fight. Again, you are not legally obligated to step in front of students and break up the school fight. What you are legally obligated to do is get help. You are obligated to notify a school administrator, an SRO, somebody that can provide help while students are fighting. If that requires you to leave the area to go find help, if you do not have a radio or a person close by, then you need to leave the area to go get help. You are not legally obligated to step in between students and break up a school fight. You are obligated legally to get help to stop the student fight. Our Board Policy 2266, this is the non-discrimination on the basis of sex in education programs and activities. This is the sexual harassment reporting. Again, congratulations, you are all mandatory reporters when it comes to reporting Title IX sexual harassment policy that covers both students and employees. All employees are required by federal law to report incidents of sexual harassment. Who are you to report this to? Or what are you to report? You are to report anything that you see or hear that involves sexual activity, sexual assault, verbal or written sexual harassment. This could be on social media, email, text messages, verbal comments, innuendos, hand gestures, anything that appears to be violence and that appears to relate to domestic or dating violence. Where are you to report this information to? Every school has a Title IX coordinator on site. You can report it to your school principal or your school administrator. If you're not comfortable reporting it to the school Title IX coordinator or your school supervisor or principal, please make sure that you report it to the district Title IX coordinator at title9@brevardschools.org. We have one person within the district that is a Title IX coordinator and will review the information to make sure that it falls under the Title IX statute and that each report meets the verification and guidelines under Title IX. But once you have reported the information that you have the suspicion of, you have done your due diligence to report under Title IX. For union contacts, if you are an instructional personnel, you have the ability to belong to the Brevard Federation of Teachers. Anthony Colucci is the president for Brevard Federation of Teachers, and we'll have a presentation later on during this orientation to provide you materials and information about how to become a member of BFT. If you are a support staff personnel, you have the ability to belong to the Union of the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades, Local 1010. Richard Jones is a business representative for the Local 1010, and you can obtain information on their website about how to become part of this union. If you are a support staff or non-bargaining employee, you have the ability to belong to the Brevard Association of School Administrators. Gary Schifrin is the executive director for this organization. You do not have to be a school administrator to belong to BASA. You just have to have the non-bargaining classification as your job employment description.